My feet ached as I balanced the heavy tray against my hip, the starched fabric of the waitress uniform scratching against my skin like sandpaper. 6 hours into my shift at Bellissimo, Milan's most exclusive restaurant, and the weight of my secret grew heavier with each passing minute. I adjusted the loose-fitting black apron that concealed my barely visible 4-month pregnancy, a small bump that felt like it carried the weight of the entire world. "Table 14 needs the special champagne," Marco, the floor manager, barked at me. "Don't screw this up, Sofia. It's Alessio Ricci's engagement party." The name sliced through me like a blade of ice. My fingers trembled so violently that the crystal flutes on my tray clinked against each other. A delicate warning bell. Alessio Ricci. My Alessio. Or at least he had been mine once, in another lifetime only 18 months ago. I steadied my breathing, a technique I'd perfected since discovering I was carrying his child. "Who's the lucky woman?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice neutral. Marco rolled his eyes. "Some model. Valentina something. Where have you been living? Under a rock. It's been all over the tabloids for months." I forced a smile that felt like broken glass cutting my lips. Of course, I knew exactly who Valentina was. I'd spent countless nights scrolling through her Instagram, torturing myself with images of her perfect body draped around my ex-husband, a man most of Milan knew only as a successful businessman. If they only knew what happened behind closed doors. "Just serve the champagne and keep your head down," Marco added, lowering his voice. "Ricci's people are everywhere tonight," I nodded, adjusting my blonde hair, now dyed brown and cut short to avoid recognition. 18 months ago, I'd been Sofia Ricci, the quiet, elegant wife of one of Italy's most dangerous men. Now I was just Sofia Belli, a waitress with a fake last name, and a baby growing inside me that would inherit the blood of a monster. A monster I still couldn't completely hate. The private dining room gleamed with opulence. Crystal chandeliers casting diamonds of light across walls draped in cream silk. I kept my eyes lowered as I entered, the way I'd been instructed. The voices grew louder, laughter, congratulations, the distinct timbre of wealth and power filling the space like expensive perfume. Then I heard it. His laugh. Deep and rich, with that slight rasp that used to vibrate against my skin in the darkness of our bedroom. My body responded instantly. A Pavlovian reaction I despised. I risked a glance up. There he was. Alessio sat at the head of the long table, his broad shoulders encased in a tailored black suit that I knew would feel like sin beneath my fingertips. His dark hair was longer than when I'd left him, curling slightly at the nape of his neck. His olive skin glowed with vitality, and the scar that traced his left eyebrow, a souvenir from his youth that he'd never explained, only enhanced his devastating beauty. Beside him sat Valentina, all cascading dark hair and impossibly long limbs. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light, throwing prisms across the white tablecloth. She was everything I wasn't, tall, confident, and clearly unbroken. I moved silently around the perimeter of the room, pouring champagne into flutes with practiced precision, my hands steadier than my heart. No one looked at the waitstaff. We were furniture, invisible to the glittering guests. This invisibility had been my salvation when I'd applied for the job 3 weeks ago, desperate for money after my savings had finally run out. I hadn't known about his engagement party. It was cruel cosmic timing that I'd been assigned this room tonight, but perhaps it was inevitable. Milan was Alessio's city, after all. I had been foolish to stay, but where else could I go with no money and a baby on the way? I was almost finished, just 2 glasses left to fill, when it happened. Valentina tossed her head back in laughter at something Alessio whispered in her ear, and her elbow knocked into my tray. The champagne bottle wobbled. I lunged to steady it, but my sudden movement caused my apron to shift, clinging momentarily to the small curve of my belly. "I'm so sorry," Valentina said, not looking at me, her attention still on Alessio. "It's fine," I murmured automatically, my voice barely audible, but it was too late. Alessio had seen the movement. His dark eyes flicked to my midsection, then up to my face. For one eternal second there was nothing. No recognition, no reaction. Just assessment, the way he'd look at a business proposition or an enemy. Then his eyes widened fractionally, and I watched the impossible happen. Alessio Ricci, the man who controlled his every micro-expression, the man who could lie to killers without blinking, lost his composure. The color drained from his face. He half rose from his chair, his napkin falling forgotten to the floor. "Sophia," he whispered, the name falling from his lips like a forbidden prayer. 20 pairs of eyes turned to me, including Valentina's, her perfect features contorting in confusion. I backed away. The tray clutched against my chest like a shield. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I'd been so careful, changing my appearance, using a false name. I'd only taken the job because I was desperate, and Bellissimo paid better than anywhere else. I'd been planning to quit before I started showing too much. "You know her, darling?" Valentina's voice cut through the sudden silence, sharp as a stiletto. Alessio didn't answer her. He was still staring at me, his gaze dropping to my stomach, then back to my face. Understanding dawned in those dark eyes that had once looked at me with such tenderness, such passion, and sometimes such terrifying rage. "Everyone out," he said, his voice deadly quiet. No one moved. "Now!" The word exploded from him, making crystal stemware tremble. The authority in his tone was absolute. Chairs scraped against the marble floor as his guests hurriedly stood. Valentina remained seated, her knuckles white around her champagne flute. "Alessio, what is going on?" she demanded, but he wasn't listening. He snapped his fingers, and instantly his head of security, Bruno, materialized at his side. "Clear the room. Everyone, give us privacy." I finally broke from my trance and turned to flee, but I'd barely taken 2 steps when I felt his hand close around my wrist. His touch burned through me like a brand, familiar and foreign all at once. "Not you," Alessio said, his voice low and dangerous in my ear. "You stay, Sophia." Bruno was efficiently herding the confused guests out, including a protesting Valentina, who shot daggers at me with her eyes. The door closed behind them with a heavy finality, leaving me alone with the father of my unborn child, the man I'd fled in the dead of night 18 months ago. "Let go of me, Alessio," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. He did, stepping back to look at me fully. His eyes moved over my dyed hair, the cheap uniform lingering on the small swell of my abdomen. "Is it mine?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion I couldn't identify. The question stung like a slap. "No, it belongs to one of the other dangerous criminals I was married to," I snapped before I could stop myself. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "You still have that mouth on you." He moved closer, and I backed away until I hit the wall. "Why are you here, Sophia? Why now? On this night, of all nights?" "It's not what you think," I said, the tray still clutched against me. "I didn't know about your party. I just needed a job." "A job?" he repeated, incredulous. "You left with 5 million euros from my safe. Don't tell me you've gone through it all already." I looked away, shame burning my cheeks. "Your father found me 6 months ago. He took everything." I hadn't meant to tell him that, but the words tumbled out before I could stop them. Alessio went very still, the way he did when he was most dangerous. "My father? Gregorio found you?" His voice had dropped to a whisper. "And you didn't come to me?" "Come to you?" I laughed, a broken sound. "After what happened the night I left? After what you did?" Pain flashed across his face. "I never touched you, Sophia, never. Not like that. You put 3 men in the hospital that night. You made me watch." The memories flooded back, blood on marble floors, screams echoing through our mansion. Alessio's face transformed into something inhuman with rage. "You said I would be next if I ever betrayed you." He flinched. I was angry. They were stealing from me, using my wife to do it. Using you. I didn't know what my brother was doing, I whispered, the old defense automatic on my lips. I didn't know he was using my access to your accounts. Alessio moved closer, crowding me against the wall. I could smell him now. Expensive cologne, the faint musk of his skin underneath. My body responded traitorously, remembering nights tangled in silk sheets, his hands gentle despite the violence they were capable of. "And yet you took my money when you left," he said softly. 5 million in bearer bonds. That wasn't your brother's idea? I raised my chin. Consider it hazard pay for being married to you for 3 years. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I glimpsed the man others feared, the real Alessio Ricci, not the charming businessman or the passionate lover, but the calculated predator who controlled half of northern Italy's underworld. And now my father has taken it all. He mused, his voice deceptively calm. And you're carrying my child. I don't want anything from you, I said quickly. I just need to work until the baby comes. Then I'm leaving Milan for good. His hand shot out, not to grab me, but to place his palm against the wall beside my head, caging me in. You're not going anywhere, Sophia, not with my child. Fear and something darker, something I didn't want to name, coiled in my belly. You're engaged, Alessio. Congratulations. Go back to your party. Forget you saw me. Forget? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. 18 months, Sophia. 18 months I've had men searching every corner of Europe for you. 18 months I've imagined what I would do when I found you. His eyes burned into mine, and now you appear, carrying my heir, serving champagne at my engagement party. Even I couldn't have orchestrated something so perfectly ironic. Please, I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. Just let me go. You have a new life now. A beautiful fiancé, a business arrangement, he cut in, his voice hard. Nothing more. The door burst open, and Valentina stood there, her perfect features twisted with fury. What the hell is going on, Alessio? Who is this woman? Alessio didn't move, didn't even look at her. His eyes remained fixed on mine, searching for something. Leave us, Valentina. We'll discuss this later. Discuss what? Why you're in here with the help. She strode forward, her heels clicking against the marble. Is this some ex-girlfriend? Is that why you're acting so strange? She's my wife, Alessio said quietly, still looking at me. Valentina froze. Ex-wife, you mean? You told me you were divorced. No, he replied, his gaze never leaving my face. I told you my wife left me. I never signed divorce papers. There was never a divorce. A dangerous smile curved his lips. Sophia is still legally my wife. The room spun around me. I'd assumed he'd divorced me in absentia. I'd been hiding, using a fake name, too afraid to consult a lawyer. And all this time, I'd still been his. You've got to be joking, Valentina hissed. Look at her. She's pregnant, for God's sake. Alessio finally turned to look at his fiancée, his expression unreadable. My pregnant wife, he corrected softly. Carrying my child. Valentina's face crumpled for an instant before hardening into fury. She yanked the enormous diamond ring from her finger and hurled it at him. It bounced off his chest and skittered across the floor. You're insane. All of you. Keep your rings and your lies and your secret families. She spun on her heel and stormed out. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel the baby flutter inside me as if responding to my distress. Alessio bent slowly to retrieve the ring, slipping it into his pocket. When he straightened, his expression had changed. Gone was the shock, the anger. Now he looked, resolved, determined. My car is waiting outside, he said, straightening his cuffs. You're coming home with me. No, I'm not, I replied, summoning what little courage I had left. I have a life now, Alessio, a small apartment. Plans that don't include you. Plans? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're working as a waitress, living in what I imagine is some rat-infested studio apartment, carrying the Ricci air. Those aren't plans, Sophia. That's desperation. It's freedom, I countered. But my voice lacked conviction even to my own ears. He stepped closer, and this time when he reached for me, his hand was gentle as it cupped my cheek. I should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned into his touch, my body betraying me as it always had with him. I searched for you for 18 months, he said, his voice dropping to that intimate register that used to make me melt. I had every intention of punishing you when I found you, for taking my money, for leaving without a word, but seeing you now, his thumb brushed across my lower lip. Carrying my child, everything has changed. Nothing has changed, I whispered. You're still you. I'm still me. We still want different things. What do you want, Sophia? He asked, his dark eyes searching mine. Safety, I answered honestly. Peace. A normal life for my baby. He nodded slowly. And you think you'll find that running from me? From my father, alone? Before I could answer, the door opened again, and Bruno stepped inside. Boss, we need to move. Valentina is making a scene in the restaurant. Alessio didn't take his eyes off me. Have someone take care of it, and send for the doctor. I want Sophia examined immediately. I don't need a doctor, I protested. When was your last prenatal visit? He demanded. I looked away. The truth was, I hadn't been able to afford proper medical care. I'd been to a free clinic twice, but it had been over a month since my last checkup. My silence was answer enough. Alessio's jaw tightened. Bruno, bring the car around. We're leaving now. I'm not going anywhere with you, I insisted, even as exhaustion washed over me. I'd been on my feet for hours, and the confrontation had drained what little energy I had left. Alessio saw it, of course. He always saw everything. You can walk out of here under your own power, or I can carry you, he said simply. Either way, you're coming home. That mansion was never my home, I replied, thinking of the cold marble halls, the armed guards, the gilded cage he'd kept me in. Something flickered in his eyes. Was it hurt? Then I'll take you somewhere else, somewhere new. But you're coming with me, Sophia. He placed his hand gently, almost reverently on my small bump. Both of you. The possessiveness in his touch, in his voice, sent a shiver through me. This was what I'd feared, what I'd run from. But as his warmth seeped through the thin fabric of my uniform, I felt the baby move again. Stronger this time, and in that moment, I knew I had no choice. Alessio had found me, and he would never let me go again. I sat in the back of Alessio's Mercedes. The butter-soft leather seats, a stark contrast to the plastic chairs I'd grown accustomed to. Bruno drove silently, his massive frame hunched over the steering wheel, while Alessio sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body but not touching me. The space between us felt electric, charged with unspoken words and buried memories. Through the tinted windows, Milan's glittering nightscape blurred past, a world I'd once been part of and then deliberately exiled myself from. My fingers twisted nervously in my lap, the cheap silver band I wore to discourage advances from customers suddenly feeling like a mockery next to Alessio's presence. You're not taking me to the mansion, I observed quietly, as Bruno turned onto an unfamiliar street heading away from the direction of the Ricci estate where I'd spent 3 years of my life. No, Alessio replied, his eyes fixed on my profile. I have an apartment in the city center. More secure, fewer staff. I nodded, relieved not to be returning to that cold, sprawling house filled with memories both beautiful and terrible. The mansion had always felt like Alessio's territory, never truly mine, despite his insistence on redecorating entire wings to my taste. You look tired, he said, his voice softer than it had been at the restaurant. I've been on my feet since noon, I answered, unable to keep the weariness from my voice. Without warning, he reached across the space between us and took my hand, turning it palm up. His thumb traced the calluses that had formed there over months of carrying heavy trays and washing dishes. Something dark flashed across his face. These hands weren't meant for labor, he said, almost to himself. I pulled my hand away. These hands have kept me alive, Alessio. Kept your child alive. His jaw tightened at the mention of the baby, and his gaze dropped to my belly, a possessive heat in his eyes that made my skin prickle with awareness. You should have come to me when you found out. You made it very clear what happens to people who betray you, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. You didn't betray me, he replied, his voice dropping to that dangerous register I remembered all too well. Your brother did. And you made me watch what happened to him and his friends. The memory rose unbidden, blood spattering across imported marble, my screams echoing off vaulted ceilings. Alessio's face transformed into something inhuman as he'd ordered his men to continue. You said it was a lesson. It was. No apology, no remorse. Just a statement of fact. Your brother used you to access my accounts. He put you in danger. He deserved what he got. "He's my brother, Alessio," I whispered. "My only family." "I was your family," he countered, and the raw emotion in his voice startled me. "I gave you everything, protected you, and you ran." His hand curled into a fist on his thigh. "With my money." The car slowed, pulling into the underground garage of a sleek high-rise I didn't recognize. Bruno parked but remained seated, awaiting instructions. "Give us a moment," Alessio said, and Bruno stepped out, standing just beyond the car's tinted windows, his broad back to us, a sentinel granting the illusion of privacy. In the dimly lit confines of the car, Alessio finally turned fully toward me. "Why didn't you tell me about the baby before you ran?" I stared at him, momentarily confused. "I didn't know I was pregnant when I left." His eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me, Sophia. Not now." "I'm not lying," I insisted, resting a protective hand on my bump. "I found out 2 months after I left. I was staying with a friend in Geneva. I'd missed my period, but I thought it was stress from everything." I swallowed hard. The timing. It must have happened right before I left. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around his eyes, a slight relaxation of his jaw. 4 months, he murmured, calculating. "That would mean—" "The night of the charity gala," I finished quietly. Recognition flared in his eyes. "The last night we'd made love before everything fell apart, before I discovered what my brother had done, before Alessio showed me exactly what kind of man he truly was." "Does my father know?" he asked, his voice suddenly hard again. "About the baby?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. He was only interested in the money. Tell me what happened with him. Everything." I took a deep breath, the memories still raw. "He found me in Barcelona 6 months ago. I'd been there for almost a year, working in a small cafe, trying to build a life. 2 of his men grabbed me off the street as I was walking home. They took me to a hotel where he was waiting." I shuddered at the recollection of Gregorio Ricci's cold eyes, so like his son's, and yet utterly devoid of the passion that animated Alessio's. "He said he'd been looking for me since you couldn't find me yourself, said I'd disrespected the family by leaving." Alessio's expression darkened. "What did he do?" "Nothing physical," I assured him quickly. "He didn't hurt me. He just took everything. The money, my passport, even my phone. Said it was payment for dishonoring the Ricci name." I looked down at my hands. I think he would have done worse, but someone called him. While he was distracted, I ran. Again. "And you came back to Milan," Alessio said incredulously, "the one city where you were certain to be recognized eventually." "I had nowhere else to go," I admitted. "No money, no passport. I came back hoping I could earn enough to get papers, to leave Italy altogether. I dyed my hair, used a different name. I thought I'd be safe until I could get out." "You were never safe," Alessio said softly, and the genuine concern in his voice caught me off guard. "Not from my father. Not alone." Before I could respond, he opened the car door and stepped out, extending his hand to help me. I hesitated before taking it, allowing him to guide me from the vehicle. His touch was gentle but firm, a reminder of the strength that had both protected and terrified me during our marriage. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent, Bruno standing like a statue in one corner, Alessio's hand resting lightly at the small of my back. I could feel him watching me in the mirrored walls, his gaze intense enough to burn. The apartment, when we entered, was nothing like I'd expected. Where the mansion had been ornate and traditional, this space was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was smaller than I'd anticipated for a man of his wealth and status. Intimate, almost. "The doctor will be here soon," Alessio said, guiding me toward a plush sofa. "Sit. Rest." Too exhausted to argue, I sank onto the couch, the softness enveloping me after hours of standing. Alessio disappeared briefly, returning with a glass of water that he pressed into my hands. "Drink," he ordered gently. "You're dehydrated." I complied, the cool liquid soothing my parched throat. "I can't stay here, Alessio." "You can, and you will," he replied, his tone brooking no argument. He sat on the coffee table across from me, our knees almost touching. My father is still looking for you. He knows you took the money. What he doesn't know is that you're carrying his grandchild, the next Ricci heir. I don't want my baby anywhere near your family's world, I said, my hand instinctively moving to protect my bump. That's why I ran, Alessio, not just because of what you did that night. Because I couldn't bear the thought of raising children in that house, with guards and guns and blood money. Something flickered across his face. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. And yet here you are, carrying my child with no protection, no money, at the mercy of men like my father. He leaned forward, his hands coming to rest on my knees. Do you really think you're safer without me? Before I could answer, a discreet chime announced someone at the door. Bruno moved to answer it, admitting a petite woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes who carried a medical bag. Sophia, this is Dr. Moretti, Alessio said, standing. She's been my family's physician for 20 years. I trust her completely. The doctor approached, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. Mrs. Ricci, she greeted me, no surprise in her voice at finding her employer's long-missing wife in his apartment. I understand congratulations are in order. Alessio stepped back, giving us space, but his presence filled the room nonetheless, his watchful gaze missing nothing as the doctor took my vitals and asked questions about my pregnancy. When was your last proper prenatal visit? She asked, frowning as she took my blood pressure. About 5 weeks ago, I admitted. At a free clinic in Navigli, her frown deepened. And have you been taking prenatal vitamins? Following a proper diet? I looked away, embarrassed. The truth was, I'd been living on servers' wages and tips, often choosing between vitamins and rent. I've been doing my best. Alessio made a sound low in his throat, a growl of displeasure that sent a shiver down my spine. The doctor shot him a warning glance before continuing her examination. After checking the baby's heartbeat with a portable ultrasound, the strong, rapid pulsing filling the room and causing Alessio to go perfectly still, Dr. Moretti sat back, her expression grave. The baby appears healthy, but you, Mrs. Ricci, are not. You're anemic, underweight, and your blood pressure is concerning. You need rest, proper nutrition, and regular monitoring. She packed away her equipment with efficient movements. I'll prescribe vitamins and iron supplements. I want to see you again in 3 days. Thank you, doctor, Alessio said, walking her to the door. They exchanged quiet words I couldn't hear before she left, Bruno escorting her to the elevator. When Alessio returned, his expression was thunderous. You haven't been taking care of yourself. I've been trying to survive, I shot back, my own temper flaring. Some of us don't have unlimited resources, Alessio. You had 5 million euros when you left me, he reminded me, his voice dangerously soft. Which your father took. Which you stole from me first, he countered, then inhaled deeply, visibly reining in his anger. It doesn't matter now. What matters is that you and the baby are safe, here, with me. I stood, swaying slightly as fatigue washed over me. Alessio was at my side instantly, his arm encircling my waist to steady me. The familiar scent of him, sandalwood and spice and something uniquely him, enveloped me, triggering a cascade of memories, his arms around me in the darkness of our bedroom, his lips against my neck, his whispered promises that he would always protect me. I need to go home, I said weakly, even as my body betrayed me by leaning into his strength. You are home, he replied, his breath warm against my hair. Your things from the mansion are being brought here tomorrow. Anything else you need, I'll provide. You can't just decide this, I protested, pulling back to look at him. You can't control my life, Alessio. Not again. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I'm not controlling you, Sophia. I'm protecting what's mine. His hand moved to rest possessively on my belly. Both of you. The baby chose that moment to kick, a strong, decisive movement right against Alessio's palm. His eyes widened, a look of wonder replacing the hardness that had been there moments before. Was that? He breathed, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. I nodded, my throat suddenly tight with emotions I couldn't name. She's been active lately, especially at night. She? He whispered, his hand still splayed across my belly, waiting for another movement. I don't know for sure, I admitted. It's just a feeling. The baby kicked again, and Alessio's face transformed. The dangerous Mafia boss, the man who ruled Milan's underworld with calculated ruthlessness, looked utterly undone by the flutter of life beneath his palm. My daughter, he murmured, and the naked longing in his voice made my heart twist painfully in my chest. I stepped away, breaking the contact, suddenly terrified by the surge of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. I need to rest. Alessio nodded, collecting himself. Of course. I'll show you to your room. He led me down a hallway, opening a door to reveal a spacious bedroom with the same stunning city view as the living room. Everything you need should be here. If not, tell Bruno. I entered the room, noticing with surprise that the decor, soft blues and grays, minimalist but warm, was exactly to my taste, so different from the opulent styles Alessio usually preferred. Did you design this recently? I asked, confused. A shadow crossed his face. I bought this apartment 6 months after you left. I decorated it, in case you came back. The admission hung in the air between us, weighted with implications I wasn't ready to examine. Alessio, get some rest, he interrupted, his mask of control firmly back in place. We'll talk tomorrow. He turned to leave, then paused. Sophia? Yes? If you try to leave, I'll find you again. It wasn't a threat, but a simple statement of fact, and next time I won't be so gentle. With that, he closed the door, leaving me alone in the room he'd created for a wife he never expected to return. I sank onto the bed, my hands cradling my belly, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to cry for the life I'd fled, for the uncertain future ahead, and for the undeniable truth that despite everything, some part of me had never stopped loving the dangerous man who had reclaimed me. As sleep finally claimed me, one thought echoed through my mind. Alessio had found me, and this time, there would be no escape. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains as I opened my eyes, momentarily disoriented by the softness of the bed beneath me and the silence surrounding me. No blaring car horns from the street below my cheap apartment. No neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls. For a few seconds I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back, the restaurant. Alessio's shocked face, the doctor's visit. I sat up slowly, my hand automatically moving to my belly as the baby stirred. The clock on the nightstand showed it was nearly 10 in the morning. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept so late or so deeply. A soft knock at the door startled me. Come in, I called, pulling the blanket up to my chest, despite still being dressed in yesterday's waitress uniform. The door opened to reveal a middle-aged woman with a kind face and silver-streaked dark hair. Good morning, Mrs. Ricci, she said in Italian. I'm Maria. Mr. Ricci asked me to bring you some breakfast and fresh clothes. She carried a tray laden with food and a garment bag draped over her arm. My stomach rumbled at the sight of the tray. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, and a steaming pot of tea. Maria smiled knowingly as she set it on the nightstand. Mr. Ricci said you're eating for 2 now. He was very specific about the menu, of course he was. Alessio controlled everything in his orbit. Where is he? I asked, unable to keep the wariness from my voice. He left early this morning. Business, he said. Maria hung the garment bag in the closet. He asked me to tell you he'll return for lunch and to make yourself at home. She gestured to a door in the corner. There's a bathroom through there with everything you might need. Clean towels, toiletries. I nodded my thanks, already pouring a cup of tea with hands that trembled slightly. Maria watched me for a moment before adding gently, It's good to have you back, Mrs. Ricci. The staff at the mansion, we missed you. Before I could respond to this unexpected sentiment, she slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. After breakfast, I showered, letting the hot water sluice away the exhaustion and tension of the previous day. Wrapped in a plush towel, I examined the contents of the garment bag. A simple but elegant maternity dress in soft blue, underwear with the tags still attached, and comfortable flat shoes. All exactly my size, all exactly my style. I dressed slowly, unsettled by Alessio's apparent prescience. The clothes fit perfectly, accommodating my small bump without emphasizing it. When I emerged from the bedroom, Maria was tidying the already immaculate living room. "Is there anything you need, Mrs. Ricci?" she asked. "My things," I replied, thinking of the few possessions I'd accumulated during my months of independence. "From my apartment, I need—" "Mr. Ricci has already sent someone," she interrupted apologetically. "They should return shortly with your belongings." Of course. Alessio was nothing if not efficient. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at Milan sprawled below. From this height, the city looked like a toy model, the people tiny specks moving through a life I'd chosen to abandon, and which had now reclaimed me. "Would you like a tour of the apartment, Mrs. Ricci?" Maria offered, breaking into my thoughts. I nodded, grateful for the distraction. The apartment was larger than it had initially appeared, with 3 bedrooms, a study, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a terrace that wrapped around 2 sides of the building. The decor throughout was understated, but luxurious. Warm woods, soft textiles, and subtle lighting that created an atmosphere of intimate comfort, so different from the ostentatious grandeur of the Ricci mansion. "The security system is top of the line," Maria explained as she showed me the terrace. "There are guards in the building around the clock, and the elevator requires a special key to access this floor. A gilded cage, then, if a more comfortable one than before." "And this," Maria said, pushing open a door I hadn't noticed. "Mr. Ricci had this room prepared when he heard the news yesterday." I stepped inside and froze. It was a nursery, half finished but already taking shape. A white crib stood in the center of the room, its elegant simplicity belying what must have been an astronomical price tag. Beside it, a rocking chair by the window. The walls were bare, awaiting decoration, but shelves had been installed, holding a small collection of stuffed animals and classic children's books. "When did he—" I couldn't finish the question, overwhelmed by the implications. "The furniture was delivered at dawn," Maria said softly. "Mr. Ricci was very specific about the crib, said it had to be the safest one made." I touched the smooth wood of the crib rail, something tightening in my chest. In less than 24 hours, Alessio had created a space for our child, while I had been sleeping on a pull-out sofa in a studio apartment, with nothing but a single onesie tucked away in a drawer, as acknowledgement of the life growing inside me. The sound of the elevator arriving broke the moment. I returned to the living room just as Bruno entered, carrying the single suitcase that contained all my worldly possessions. He nodded respectfully in my direction before disappearing down the hallway with it. "Maria," I said suddenly, "I need to make a call. To the restaurant. I should tell them I won't be coming back." "Already taken care of, Mrs. Ricci," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "Mr. Ricci spoke with the owner this morning." I felt a flare of irritation. "And what did my husband tell them exactly?" Maria looked uncomfortable. "I believe he said you would no longer be working there, and compensated them generously for any inconvenience." I bit back a sharp response. It wasn't Maria's fault that Alessio had once again taken control of my life without consulting me. Instead, I asked for a phone, realizing belatedly that I had no one to call. My friends from before my marriage to Alessio had drifted away during those years, partly due to my husband's possessive nature, partly due to the natural distance that formed between my old life and my new one as a crime lord's wife. The hours passed slowly as I wandered the apartment, examining the books on the shelves, many of them favorites of mine. The artwork on the walls, tasteful, understated, the contents of the kitchen cabinets, fully stocked with everything I might need. Everywhere I looked, I saw evidence of careful preparation, as if Alessio had been setting a trap baited with all the things he knew would appeal to me. Just before noon, I heard the elevator again, and moments later, Alessio himself appeared in the doorway of the living room. He'd changed since yesterday, now wearing a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean waist. His hair was still damp from a recent shower, curling slightly at his temples in a way that made him look younger, almost vulnerable. "You're awake," he said, his eyes traveling over me, lingering on the curve of my belly visible beneath the dress. "The clothes fit." "Yes," I replied, crossing my arms protectively over my chest. You always did know my size. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. How are you feeling? Better, I admitted reluctantly. The doctor was right. I needed rest. He nodded, approaching slowly, as if afraid I might bolt like a frightened animal. Are you hungry? I thought we could have lunch on the terrace. The domesticity of the suggestion struck me as absurdly normal, given our circumstances. Nevertheless, I followed him outside, where a table had been set with a light meal. Fresh salad, crusty bread, sliced meats and cheeses. We sat across from each other, the city spread out beneath us, a tableau of forced normalcy. I saw the nursery, I said as I picked at my food. You've been busy. Alessio paused, a glass of water halfway to his lips. I wanted to be prepared. In less than a day, he set the glass down without drinking. I had most of it planned already, for after. He didn't need to specify after what. After he found me. After he brought me back to him. You were that certain I was carrying your child? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. No, he admitted, his dark eyes fixed on my face. But I was certain I would find you. The child... He paused, something raw and honest flickering across his features. The child is a gift I didn't expect. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. For a moment, I glimpsed the Alessio I had fallen in love with, the man beneath the monster, capable of tenderness and even vulnerability. Why didn't you divorce me? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me since his revelation to Valentina. His expression hardened slightly. Why would I? You're my wife. I left you, Alessio. I stole from you. Most men would have cut their losses. I'm not most men. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. And you were never a loss to be cut, Sophia. You were. You are. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Equal parts fear and something more complicated. Something I wasn't ready to acknowledge. What about Valentina? I asked, changing the subject. Your engagement? A dismissive shrug. A business arrangement, as I told you. Her father owns shipping interests I wanted to acquire. The engagement was a means to an end. And now? Now it's over, he said simply. She knows that. I set down my fork, my appetite gone. You can't just... Pick up where we left off, Alessio. Too much has happened. I don't intend to pick up where we left off, he replied, his voice dropping to that dangerously soft register that always preceded his most implacable decisions. I intend to start something new with you. With our child. Something new, I echoed, the words hollow in my mouth. What does that mean exactly? Alessio set his napkin aside, his movements deliberate. It means I'm offering you a choice, Sophia. A choice? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Since when does Alessio Ricci offer choices rather than commands? Something flashed in his eyes. Hurt, perhaps, though it was gone too quickly to be sure, since I spent 18 months searching for a wife who preferred waiting tables while pregnant to living with me. He stood, moving to the edge of the terrace, his back to me as he gazed out over the city. I've had time to reflect on why you left. I remained silent, watching the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the railing. I thought I gave you everything, he continued quietly. Security, luxury, my name, my protection. He turned to face me. What I didn't give you was freedom. No. I agreed softly. You didn't. I kept you like a bird in a cage, he acknowledged, surprising me with his candor. Beautiful. Precious. Mine to admire. Mine to possess. His jaw tightened. I stood, never free to fly, drawn to him despite my better judgment. And now? Now I understand that keeping you captive only made you desperate to escape. He moved closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. So I'm offering you terms, Sophia. A negotiation, if you will. I'm listening, I said cautiously. Stay with me voluntarily. Here, not at the mansion. No guards following your every move. No restrictions on where you go or who you see. His voice remained steady, but I could sense the effort it cost him. In return, I ask only that you allow me to provide for you and our child. to protect you both from my father and anyone else who might harm you. I searched his face for signs of deception, but found only intensity and what appeared to be genuine sincerity. And if I refuse? His expression darkened. Don't test me on this, Sophia. My child will not be raised in poverty or danger. If you refuse my offer, he paused, visibly restraining himself. Let's just say it would be better for everyone if you accept. And there it was. The thinly veiled threat beneath the veneer of reason. The real Alessio, the one I had fled from. You haven't changed at all, I said, disappointment washing over me. This is still about control. This is about protection, he corrected sharply. My father is looking for you. Do you understand what he would do if he discovered you're carrying the next Ricci heir? If he knew you had produced what he and his wives never could? A continuation of the bloodline? Fear slithered down my spine. Gregorio Ricci's obsession with family legacy was legendary. 3 marriages had produced only one son, Alessio, and the old man's bitterness over his inability to create a dynasty had poisoned their relationship from the beginning. He would take the baby, I whispered, my hand instinctively moving to my belly. Alessio nodded grimly. He would take you both, install you in one of his properties under constant surveillance. The baby would be raised as his heir, not mine, and you? His voice hardened. You would never see the outside world again. The terrifying part was that I believed him. I had met Gregorio only a handful of times during my marriage to Alessio, but each encounter had left me chilled. The patriarch's cold calculation made his son seem positively emotional by comparison. So my choices are captivity with you or captivity with him, I said bitterly. I'm offering you protection, not captivity, Alessio replied, frustration edging his voice. I'm trying to give you as much freedom as I can while keeping you safe. What does that freedom look like exactly? I asked. Can I get a job? Have friends? Live a normal life? He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation. A job? Why would you need to work? Because it's normal, Alessio. Because it gives me purpose. Independence. Independence, he repeated, the word sour on his tongue. Always. It comes back to this. Your need to be separate from me. My need to be myself, I corrected. Not just your wife. Not just the mother of your child. A person with my own identity. He was silent for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then, to my surprise, he nodded slowly. Very well. If work is important to you, I can arrange something suitable, something safe. I stared at him, nonplussed by this unexpected concession. What about leaving the country? What if I wanted to raise our child somewhere else, away from all of this? I gestured vaguely at the luxurious apartment, the city beyond, all of it tainted by the shadow of his family's empire. Alessio's expression hardened. That is not negotiable. My child will be raised here, in Italy, with me present in their life. I had expected nothing less, but it still stung to have it confirmed so bluntly. And us? What exactly are you proposing for our relationship, Alessio? Something shifted in his gaze, a heat that was all too familiar. He stepped closer, and I fought the urge to back away, determined to hold my ground. We are still married, Sophia, he said softly. In every legal sense. Whether we resume a full marital relationship is up to you. His eyes dropped briefly to my lips. I won't force you. I've never forced you. But I think we both know what still exists between us. My traitorous body responded to his proximity, to the familiar scent of him, the heat radiating from his tall frame. Memories flooded back unbidden, his hands on my skin, his lips on mine, the way he could unravel me with a touch. For all his faults, for all the darkness in him, Alessio had always been a passionate and attentive lover. Physical attraction isn't enough, I managed, my voice not as steady as I would have liked. Not when I can't trust you. Pain flashed across his features, genuine and unguarded. You trusted me once, before I knew what you were capable of, I countered. You always knew what I was, he said quietly. From the beginning. You just chose not to see it until it was in front of you. He was right, and we both knew it. I had willfully ignored the signs, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room, the men who treated my husband with a deference bordering on terror, the unexplained absences and late-night phone calls. I had chosen the fairy tale over the reality until that bloody night had shattered my illusions forever. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The new one Alessio had provided that morning, its contacts list populated with only his number and Bruno's. "It's Dr. Moretti," I said, glancing at the screen. "Answer it," Alessio instructed, moving away to give me privacy, though I knew he would still be listening. The doctor's voice was brisk and professional, as she informed me that my blood work from the previous night showed concerning levels of anemia. "I've prescribed iron supplements," she said, "and I'd like to see you tomorrow for a more thorough examination." "Thank you, doctor," I replied, aware of Alessio's intent gaze. "I'll be there." When I ended the call, Alessio was already on his phone, issuing quiet instructions to someone. "Have the prescription delivered within the hour," he ordered, before hanging up and turning back to me. "You heard?" I asked unnecessarily. He nodded, concern evident in his expression. "You need to take better care of yourself, Sophia." "I was doing my best with limited resources," I said defensively. "And now your resources are unlimited," he replied simply. "Whatever you need, whatever the baby needs, you have only to ask." The ease with which he offered this, as if money could solve everything, both irritated and comforted me. It was so characteristically Alessio, this certainty that his wealth and power could overcome any obstacle. "I need time," I said finally, "to think about everything you've said, to decide if we can... Time," he repeated, the word heavy with meaning. "How much time?" "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "It's not a simple decision." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once, decisively. "1 week. Stay here. Let Dr. Moretti treat you. Get your strength back. Then tell me your decision." His voice softened slightly. "That's my offer, Sophia. Consider it carefully. 1 week. 7 days to decide the future of myself and my child." It didn't seem enough, and yet the alternative, running again, alone and penniless, seemed impossible now. "One condition," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "I want to see my brother." Alessio's face darkened instantly. "Marco is not welcome in my home." "I don't even know if he's alive," I countered, my voice breaking slightly. "After what you did to him, I need to see him, Alessio, to know he's okay." He turned away, his jaw clenched. "Your brother betrayed me. Used you to get to my money. He put you in danger. He's still my family," I insisted. "My only blood relative." Alessio's laugh was cold and humorless. "Blood relative? And what do you think our child is, Sophia? What do you think I am to you, legally and otherwise?" "It's not the same," I said quietly. "And you know it." He was silent for so long that I thought he would refuse outright. Then, without looking at me, he said, "I'll arrange it. But not here. And he comes alone." Relief washed through me. It wasn't everything, but it was a concession I hadn't expected. "Thank you." Alessio turned back to me, his expression grave. "Don't thank me yet. Your brother may not be the man you remember." The ominous note in his voice sent a chill through me, but before I could question him further, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his face hardening into the mask I knew so well. "I have to take this," he said, already moving toward the door. "Business. Make yourself comfortable. Whatever you need, ask Maria or Bruno." And just like that, he was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of the decision I had 1 week to make. The week passed in a strange limbo of luxury and uncertainty. True to his word, Alessio kept his distance, giving me space to think while ensuring my every need was met. Dr. Moretti visited daily, monitoring my condition with professional efficiency. The iron supplements and proper nutrition were already making a difference. My constant fatigue had lifted, and the baby was more active than ever. On the 3rd day, Bruno drove me to a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city. Alessio didn't accompany us, though I knew his men were watching from discreet distances. The cafe was empty except for a lone figure at a corner table, hunched over a cup of coffee. "Marco," I whispered as Bruno led me toward him. My brother looked up, and the sight of his face made me stumble. The handsome, carefree man I remembered was gone, replaced by someone gaunt and haunted. A jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, puckered and angry even after all this time. His right hand, when he raised it in awkward greeting, was missing 2 fingers. "Sophia," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're really here." I rushed to him, tears blurring my vision as I embraced him, feeling the sharp angles of his too thin body. "I thought you were dead," I sobbed against his shoulder. "After that night, I thought—" "Ricci doesn't kill family," Marco said with a bitter laugh. "He just makes them wish he had." We sat, and I couldn't stop staring at him, cataloging the changes. Beyond the visible injuries, there was a new wariness in his eyes, a defeated slump to his shoulders. "What happened after I left?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Marco's laugh was hollow. "Rehabilitation, Ricci style. 6 months working in one of his warehouses on the docks. 14-hour days, no pay, just enough food to keep working." He flexed his maimed hand. This was a reminder of what happens to thieves. The face was just extra. Horror and guilt washed through me. While I'd been running with Alessio's money, my brother had been suffering this brutality. "Marco, I'm so sorry. I didn't know—" "Don't," he interrupted sharply. "Don't apologize. You got away. That's what mattered." His gaze dropped to my swollen belly. "But now you're back, and with his child." I laid a protective hand over my bump. "It's complicated." "It's Ricci," Marco countered, bitterness threading his voice. "Nothing's complicated with him. He takes what he wants and destroys anyone who gets in his way. He's changed," I said, not entirely believing it myself, or trying to. Marco's laugh was harsh and disbelieving. "Men like him don't change, Sophia. They just find new ways to control you." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You need to run. Now, while you still can. I have contacts, people who can help." "I can't," I interrupted softly. "Not again. Not like this." I gestured to my belly. "And his father is looking for me, for us." Marco paled visibly. "Gregorio? He knows about the baby?" "No, not yet. But if I run, Alessio says he'll find me. Take the baby. Keep me prisoner, and you believe Alessio is the better option?" Marco shook his head in disbelief. "The devil you know, is that it?" I had no answer, because that was exactly it. Whatever his faults, Alessio had never physically hurt me, had never raised a hand to me, and I had seen the way he looked at my belly, with a reverence that suggested our child would be similarly protected. "He's offering me freedom," I said finally. "Within limits." "Freedom," Marco scoffed. "In a cage with an open door that slams shut the moment you try to walk through it." We talked for nearly an hour, Marco telling me about his new life. A small apartment in Naples, a modest job at a shipping company not connected to the Riccis. "I'm alive," he said with grim humor. "That's more than I expected after what I did." When it was time to leave, he embraced me fiercely. "Whatever you decide, know that I'm here," he whispered. "If you need me, I'll come. Consequences be damned." I clung to him, overwhelmed by the knowledge that he would risk Alessio's wrath again for me. "Stay safe," I murmured. "Please, you too, little sister." He touched my belly gently, "Both of you." On the drive back to the apartment, I watched Milan pass by in a blur, my thoughts churning. Marco was right about Alessio. He was possessive, controlling, dangerous. But he was also the father of my child. And despite everything, despite the rational part of me that knew better, there was still something between us. Something powerful and undeniable. The next few days passed in quiet contemplation as I weighed my options. True freedom would mean leaving Italy entirely, starting over somewhere Alessio and his father couldn't reach us. But the reality of my situation, pregnant, alone, with limited resources, made that dream seem impossible. And a small, traitorous part of me didn't want to run anymore. On the final day of my promised week, I woke to find a small velvet box on my nightstand. Inside was my wedding ring, a flawless diamond set in platinum, elegant and understated compared to Valentina's ostentatious engagement ring. I had left it behind when I fled, unable to bear the reminder of my marriage. I was still staring at it when Alessio appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "It's yours," he said quietly. "Whether you stay or go." "Was this meant to influence my decision?" I asked, closing the box without touching the ring. "No," he replied simply. "It's always been yours. I kept it. As a reminder." "Of what?" "Of what I lost." He moved into the room, stopping a respectful distance from the bed. "Have you decided, Sophia?" I nodded slowly, my hand moving unconsciously to my belly where our daughter, for I was convinced now it was a girl, kicked steadily. "I have conditions." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I expected nothing less. I want a real marriage," I said firmly. "Not just in name. Equal partners, Alessio. No more secrets. No more coming home with blood on your hands and expecting me not to ask questions." His expression tightened. "My business is part of our life," I interrupted. "I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. I'm asking you to let me see all of you, not just the parts you think I can handle." He studied me for a long moment. "What else?" "Marco," I said. "He's my brother, the only family I have besides you and the baby. I want him protected, not punished. And I want to see him regularly." Alessio's jaw clenched, but he nodded once, curtly. "As long as he stays away from my business. Any hint that he's involved in anything against me." "He won't be," I assured him. "He's learned his lesson." "What else?" he asked, his voice softer now. I took a deep breath. "When the baby comes, I want us to move out of Milan, away from your father's influence. I don't want our child growing up in the shadow of Gregorio Ricci." This was the condition I expected him to refuse outright. Alessio's empire was centered in Milan. His power was strongest here. To my surprise, he nodded thoughtfully. "I've been considering properties on Lake Como," he said. "Close enough to maintain my interests here, far enough to keep a certain distance from my father." His eyes met mine. "I can make that happen." Hope flickered within me, tentative but real. "One last thing," I said softly. "I need to know that our daughter will have choices I never had, that she won't be forced into this life." "Daughter?" Alessio repeated, something vulnerable flashing across his face. "Just a feeling," I admitted. "Dr. Moretti says we can find out for sure next week." He moved closer, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "A daughter," he murmured, his hand hovering near my belly, seeking permission. I guided his palm to the spot where she was most active, watching his expression soften as she kicked against his touch. For a moment, we were just two people connected by the miracle growing between us. "I swear to you," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion, "our daughter will have every choice I can give her, every opportunity, every freedom." His eyes met mine, intense and sincere. "I won't make the same mistakes with her that I made with you." In that moment, I believed him. Not because Alessio Ricci had suddenly transformed into someone else, but because I recognized the fierce protectiveness in his eyes. The same feeling that had been growing in me since the first flutter of life in my womb. "Then yes," I said quietly. "I'll stay. We'll try again." Relief washed over his face, followed by something deeper, more vulnerable. He reached for my hand, his touch gentle. "I searched for you for 18 months, Sophia. Every day, every night, wondering where you were. If you were safe, if you were happy without me." "I wasn't," I admitted softly. "Happy, I mean. Safe sometimes, but not happy." He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my palm. "I can't promise perfect happiness. I am who I am. But I can promise to try, to be better. For you." His other hand remained on my belly, "For both of you." I opened the velvet box, removing the ring that symbolized so much between us. Love and pain, passion and fear. A bond that neither time nor distance had managed to break. Alessio watched, perfectly still, as I slipped it onto my finger. "Not the same as before," I clarified. "Something new, like you said." He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. "Something new." As the morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the man who had been both my greatest love and my greatest fear, I felt our daughter kick beneath his palm. A third heartbeat connecting us, binding us together in ways neither of us had anticipated. It wouldn't be easy. Alessio was still Alessio, with all his darkness and complexity. I was still me, with my need for independence and lingering fears. But as he leaned forward to seal our new beginning with a kiss, gentle yet possessive, tender yet demanding, I knew that this time we would face whatever came together, equal partners in the dangerous, passionate life we had chosen to share.